In Module 11, we learned about life cycles of plants, and we learned about all of the reproductive organs of the plant. So that would be your flowers and your fruits and your seeds and how they would reproduce from one generation to the next. Now in Module 12, we're actually going to be talking about the vegetative organs of the plant, which is the non-reproductive parts. And so that's going to be the roots and the stems and the leaves. There is a diagram on the bottom of page 479 in your book. It's right down here in this corner. And that diagram is really, really little. And so I actually have given you a coloring sheet where it's much larger and you can actually see the parts of the plants and what those labels are actually referring to. So hopefully that will be helpful. Be aware that you also need the first page that goes with that because the key is on the bottom. And so you'll need both of those sheets to really look through that coloring sheet and make any sense out of that. So that's just to help you understand the basic parts of the plant and some of the other vocabulary that's in there. In today's video, what we're going to be talking about are the 4 major tissue types that we find in plants. And so I'm going to just be summarizing this for you to put it in a chart so that we can kind of organize the information. Again, this is just a study skill that is helpful no matter what you're studying. Anytime you can organize information so that you can compare it with each other, contrast it with each other, so that you can then get that information organized in your head, that's just something that's going to be really beneficial no matter what kind of material you're trying to learn. So the very first type of tissue type that we're going to discuss is called meristematic tissue. And meristematic tissue is the tissue in the plant that is involved with growth. It is where you have all of your undifferentiated cells, which basically just means that they're not specialized, and then those cells can turn into any kind of tissue that they're going to need or that the plant is going to need to keep going. Now, the way that I remember this is that meristematic starts with an M, and the word mitosis also starts with an M. And if things are going to be growing and reproducing, they're going to be going through mitosis. And so I put those 2 M's together to help me remember that meristematic tissue is going to be undergoing mitosis. And so that's where all the growth is going to be taking place. Now, in the plant, specifically where you're going to find meristematic tissue, you're going to find it at the tips of the roots and the tips of the shoots. And so that probably is going to make sense because if you think about the root of a plant, as the plant matures and the roots grow deeper and deeper into the soil, it's going to be growing longer. And so the tip of the root is where the growth is going to happen. The same thing is going to happen on your shoots. If you think about a corn plant, a bean plant, any kind of a tree, you plant them and they grow taller and taller and taller. And they're also going to grow out this way. And so where the growth is going to occur is at the end of the stem or the end of the shoot. Okay, so that's meristematic tissue. That's where all your growth is occurring. Now, ground tissue is the most common type of tissue in the plant, and it is used for everything from storage. If the plant makes extra food, for example, if you have a carrot and the plant makes extra food and it's going to store some of those extra nutrients someplace for further use, and then we actually take advantage of that when we eat carrots or when we eat different things like that from plants. So storage is also good for support and any kind of metabolism. So any part of the plant that does photosynthesis is going to be considered ground tissue. Now, the way I remember this is sometimes if we use the saying that we want to get into common ground with people or we have common ground with them. And so just the saying common ground helps me remember that ground tissue is the most common in the plants. And ground tissue is located in all areas of the plant. It's not in any specific area like the meristematic tissue, it's just going to be in one specific part. Ground tissue is located in all parts of the plant. Now, your book does go into some more detail. It talks about parenchyma, which is used for storage, and metabolism, which is specifically going to be found in your roots for storage. It's going to be found in leaves and stems if it's going to be doing photosynthesis and metabolism. The book also talks about parenchyma, which is used for support of younger stems and roots. And then it talks about sclerenchyma, which is for rigid support and protection and that's going to be found in the more mature parts of the plant. I will not expect you to know the difference between those three types. She does talk about them, but you're not going to be expected to know them as far as any of your homework or as far as any test questions, okay? The third type of tissue that we're going to be looking at is dermal tissue. And you may be familiar with the word epidermis. The epidermis is the outer layer of our skin, or you may be familiar with a hypodermic needle that's used to give injections for insulin or vaccinations. And so a hypodermic needle goes under the skin. Derm means is a root that really means skin. It's where our root skin comes from. And so when I think of derm, I think of skin. And I know that my skin is used to protect me from all different kinds of things that could cause infections or could cause, all sorts of other problems within my body. So just as our skin is used to protect us, the dermal tissue in a plant is used to protect it from invaders or from things that would cause disease. The dermal tissue is also used for the dermal tissue in the root. It's also used to absorb water and minerals from the soil that the plant is planted in. So just like our skin is on the outside of us, dermal tissue is going to be found on the outer layer of your roots, the outer layer of your stems, the outer layer of your leaves. It's normally just one cell thick. We'll see that as we start talking more in depth about roots and leaves. So again, one cell thick, just like your skin, it's used for protection for the plant. Okay, finally, the last type of tissue type is vascular. Vascular starts with a V, and the word vein also starts with a V. And you know that your veins are used to carry your blood throughout your body. You know that your blood carries all sorts of things to make it carries your oxygen, it carries glucose so that your body can make energy. And so just as our body is dependent on our vascular system to carry everything that's needed throughout our body, the plant's vascular system is needed to carry everything that the plant needs throughout it as well. It is specifically used to transport water and minerals from the roots up to the rest of the plant, and it's used to transport nutrients. If you recall, your plants are going to go through photosynthesis, and so they're going to be making sugars, and then those sugars are going to be transported from the leaves down in order to get to the rest of the plant. They may have to store those things in the roots. So we basically have two different kinds of vascular tissue. They go all throughout all of the plant. And we're going to hit this again later, but this is information you will need to know. But again, we're going to hit it again later. Your xylem is what is used to transport the water and the minerals, and it goes from the ground, from the roots up, whereas phloem is going to transport the nutrients throughout the plant, the glucoses and those types of simple sugars that the leaves make through photosynthesis. And so the phloem is going to transport those organic substances, those nutrients from the leaves downward. And we'll go into a lot more detail about that kind of transport later on. But xylem and phloem are your two types of vascular tissue. Okay, so those are the four types of tissue. So just real quickly again, meristematic, the meristematic tissue is going to go through mitosis because that's where all your growth takes place. Your ground tissue is the most common types of tissue used for storage and support for your plant. Dermal tissue is the outer layer of the plant. It's there for protection. And then their vascular tissue is what's used for transport for all of your water and your nutrients throughout the plant. Okay, so those are your four main types of tissues in the plants, and then we're going to go into more detail about roots and stems and leaves as we go a little bit further into this chapter.